Hey everybody, welcome to my first video review slash playtest of a board or card game. Because it is my first video, I thought I'd start out with something simple, something quick. So we're going to take a look today at Cardline Animals. Cardline Animals is a really fun, really quick game. I use it a lot of times as an icebreaker, something to get everybody into the groove of playing board games, or if, I have some people who come over who maybe haven't played that many board games or have only played like Monopoly or Life or something like that. This is a really good kind of like wake up game for them, and just to see some of the interesting and cool things that board games nowadays are able to present us with. So let's get started. Cardline Animals is for ages 7 plus, 2 to 8 players, and takes about 15 minutes. Comes in this pretty nice, cool looking tin. You open up the tin, and we have the rule book here. It's very short, very to the point, tells you everything you need to know, and it's very well done. And then the only other thing in this box is a deck of cards, and this is the whole game. So let's quickly go over the components. We've got a bunch of cards. Each card is of a different animal, and each card has two sides. On one side you have a picture of the animal, you have a icon that indicates the class of, and if I get this scientifically wrong, please don't beat me over the head, but indicates the type of animal that it is. In this case, this is a bird, and this hedgehog here is a mammal. And then there's other ones for fish, reptiles, insects, etc. Right below that icon, there's a little kind of bar indicator here that tells you how endangered a species is. Maybe I can find one that's, here we go. So you can see this one is much more endangered than the hummingbird. And then up here at the top we have the name of the animal and its scientific name. So that's one side of the card, and this is the side that you're going to be seeing most at the beginning of the game. On the other side of the card, it's the same exact thing, except down here at the bottom there are three different kinds of stats. The first stat stands for its average size. The second stat is the average weight, and the third stat is the average lifespan for the hummingbird. And what you're going to do to set up this game, the first thing is you're going to pick one of these stats that you want to play with. So for our quick example game, we're going to use lifespan. I think lifespan is the hardest, so it'll probably be easiest for me to mess up and to show you all the mechanics. So what you're going to do is you're going to deal 4 cards to each player in your game. So we'll just play a quick 2-player example game here. So we've got player 1 and player 2. So we've each got 4 cards, and then you take the remaining deck of cards and you take the top card off the deck, which we have the black ant, and you place it stat side up on the table. Now all these cards that got dealt to players are dealt stat side down, so you can't see the values, and they stay stat side down until you place them into the lineup. So the way the game works is the first player will pick one of their animals. So I have the red deer, the pigeon, the Atlantic salmon, and the rabbit. So I'll pick an animal. Let's say I'll pick the red deer, and I look at the existing lineup and figure out where I think the red deer should go. So I can see on here that the lifespan of the black ant is 3 years. So I have to decide, do I think that the red deer, lives longer or shorter than the black ant? And I'm going to go with probably lives longer. So you can do this a couple different ways. You can either have people place their cards and then flip them over to confirm if they're right or wrong. A lot of the times what I do when I play is I'll just have people kind of put their finger on the spot where they want the card to go. That way, if they're wrong, we don't have to move around the lineup. Plus, eventually, depending on the number of players, your line's going to get quite long, and you're going to have a lot of places to put these cards. So, we'll say, okay, I think the red deer lives longer than the black ant. So then you look at the card, and what do you know? It lives for 20 years. So, I was correct, and the deer gets added to the lineup. Now, that's all for my turn. I've got 3 cards left, and player 2 now takes a look at their cards. They've got the giant panda, the brown bear, the Dalmatian pelican, and the cheetah. So let's go with the giant panda. Now, what player 2 has to do is they have to figure out, okay, do I think the giant panda lives less than the black ant? Does it live longer than the red deer? Or is the lifespan somewhere in between the two? So I'm going to say that the giant panda lives longer than the red deer. So once again, flip over and confirm. And what do you know? The average lifespan is 28 years. So I'm correct. And then play is going to go back and forth like this until somebody runs out of cards. The first player to get rid of all their cards starts the final round to determine the winner. Now, what happens if you place a card into the wrong spot on the lineup? So let's say that I have the pigeon, and I decide, for whatever reason, that I think it lives less than the black ant. The black ant lives 3 years. I flip it over. The pigeon lives 10 years. I was wrong. Well, what happens is the pigeon gets put into a discard pile, and I take the next card off the top of the deck, stats side down, and add it to my hand. So the only way to get rid of cards from your hand is to correctly place them into the lineup. And just as an example here, you can see as more and more cards get added to the lineup, now if I have this pelican, I have to decide, does it go over here at the end, over here at this end, or does it go in between this card or this card or this card or this card? So it gets pretty big, it gets pretty crazy, and it gets a lot more difficult to correctly place your cards. So, to show you how the final round works, I'm going to add in a third player. So we've got player 1, player 2, and player 3. So let's say we just started the round, it's player 1's turn, and player 1 correctly places their card onto the line. Now in this scenario, player 3 is out. They have no opportunity to try to place another card or anything like that, because even if they correctly place a card, they still have one card left. So because of that, they're not allowed to place. However, player 2 has one card left, so they have the opportunity to try to correctly place that card onto the lineup. If they incorrectly place it onto the lineup, thereby meaning that they would have to draw a new card, then player 1 wins the game. However, if player 2 does correctly place their card onto the lineup, then both player 1 and player 2 draw a new card. and we start over from there with player 1 trying to place their card correctly onto the lineup. And this keeps on going. Let's say they both correctly place their cards onto the lineup, then they both draw another card, and this just keeps on going until somebody messes up. And whoever messes up is out of the game, and the person who is left is the winner. And that is all there is to it. That is Cardline Animals. You can play multiple games, change the stats every time. You know, we did lifespan this time, we could do weight next time. There is a pretty big selection of cards. There's over 100 cards here, and the combination of 3 stats per card, I mean, you've got over 300 stats to play with, and some of these, I mean, look, man, some of these you're going to kind of remember because you see them a lot, but a lot of them you're not going to be able to memorize unless you really try. And on top of that, there's like slight variations. Like there's a couple different types of horses in here, so I mean, that's one example of how, you know, you can't just memorize the horse. There's, you know, a couple different horses in here that you have to contend with. So that's Cardline Animals. I definitely like it. I recommend it as a quick pickup game. Good icebreaker. It only costs between $10 to $20 depending on where you pick it up. And yeah, I highly recommend it. And I'm looking forward to the next game in the series, which is called Cardline Globetrotter. Cardline Globetrotter is the same concept, but instead of animals, you're using countries, and the stats that you're dealing with are things like CO2 emissions, GDP, population, things like that. It looks pretty interesting. It's supposed to be out before the end of the year. And that's it for my review. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Hopefully I will be able to make some longer videos of some more in-depth games. My plans are to show off the game, set it up, do a tutorial, and then maybe play through a couple of turns in addition to, you know, just giving my thoughts on the game as a whole. So once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.